Professor Aldrin's forearms moved across the holographic display with practiced precision, pulling up files that made most students shift uncomfortably in their seats. The classroom fell into an anxious silence as the lesson topic appeared in floating letters above his desk: Advanced Predator Recognition and Threat Response. Riley Brooks slouched in her seat near the back, trying to finish her xenobiology homework before it was due next period. She'd been at the Galactic Unified Academy for 3 months now, and the workload never seemed to ease up. Being one of only 12 humans in a school of 4,000 students meant everyone expected her to represent her entire species, which was exhausting. Sometimes she just wanted to blend in and get her assignments done. "Today we will test your instincts," Professor Aldrin announced, his feathers rustling with what Riley had learned meant excitement. He was a centaurian, tall and bird-like with bright blue plumage and those forearms that made him incredibly efficient at multitasking. "Your survival instinct is millions of years of evolution compressed into immediate response. We must learn to trust these instincts while also training our minds to think clearly during danger." Around Riley, students from dozens of different worlds sat up straighter. There was Pip, the small fuzzy Quillen who looked like someone had combined a rabbit with a chinchilla. Next to her sat Renth, whose species called themselves the Skyborn. He had magnificent feathers in shades of gold and red, and he came from a world where honor and warrior traditions meant everything. Dola occupied a specialized water tank desk, her bioluminescent body pulsing gentle blues and greens as she took notes. "The Galactic Concordance spans thousands of worlds," Professor Aldrin continued, "and while we live in relative peace now, space exploration means encountering the unknown. Some of you will become diplomats, scientists, explorers. All of you need to recognize danger when you hear it." He pressed something on his control pad and the room's lights dimmed. "I have compiled recordings from some of the most dangerous predators known to our civilization. This is not meant to traumatize but to educate. Your bodies will respond before your minds can process. This is natural. This is survival." Riley glanced up from her datapad, mildly interested. She'd done plenty of camping back on Earth with her family. Her dad had made them all take wilderness safety courses. She figured this would be pretty similar. The first sound began to play through the room's audio system. It started as a low rumble, then built into a roaring howl that seemed to vibrate through the floor itself. Riley watched with fascination as every single student around her froze. Not just paused, but completely locked up. Pip's eyes went huge and glassy. Renth's feathers pressed flat against his body, making him look half his normal size. Even Dola stopped glowing entirely, fading to almost invisible in her tank. Professor Aldrin let the sound fade. "Good. Excellent responses, all of you. That was a Venloth Alpha from the Tranda system. Notice how your bodies responded? Pip, you froze. This is a prey species response, making you harder to detect. Renth, you made yourself smaller, reducing your threat profile. Dola, you went dark, utilizing your species' natural camouflage. These are millions of years of survival instinct." He made a note on his datapad. "Riley, I did not see you respond. Did the audio system malfunction?" Riley looked up, confused. "Respond to what? The Venloth roar? Oh, that sound? I thought it was just part of the lecture starting." She shrugged. "Should I have done something?" Several students turned to stare at her. Professor Aldrin's feathers ruffled in what Riley had learned was confusion. "You felt no fear response? No instinct to flee or hide?" "I mean, I wasn't really paying attention," Riley admitted. "I'm trying to finish this homework on crystalline life forms before next period." Professor Aldrin's forearms gestured at his controls. "Let us try another. Please, everyone, prepare yourselves. This one is from a water world. Riley, please pay attention this time." The next sound was worse. It was a clicking, chittering noise that built into a high-pitched shriek. Around Riley, students practically jumped out of their seats. One student near the front actually triggered their desk's emergency alert. Renth's feathers poofed out to twice his size, and Pip made a squeaking noise that sounded distressed even to Riley's untrained ear. Riley tilted her head, listening carefully. It reminded her of something, but she couldn't quite place it. Maybe dolphins? Or maybe that sound the pipes made in her apartment building back in Detroit, when someone ran the hot water too long. "That," Professor Aldrin said, his voice slightly shaky, "was a deep stalker from Oceanus Prime, one of the most efficient predators in known space." "Riley? Yeah?" "Your heart rate did not elevate. You showed no stress response at all. Are you certain you can hear properly? My hearing's fine, Riley said, starting to feel self-conscious as more students turned to look at her. It just wasn't that scary. It sounded like, I don't know, like ocean noises mixed with maybe a bird or something. Pip spoke up, her voice trembling. That sound means death on 17 different worlds. It's in our genetic memory. How can you not feel it? I guess humans are just different, Riley offered, not sure what else to say. Professor Aldrin spent the next 20 minutes playing 6 more recordings. Each one was supposedly from an apex predator on various worlds throughout the galaxy. Each one caused visible distress among every student in the class. And each time Riley felt nothing more than mild curiosity. Some of the sounds were interesting from an acoustic perspective. A few were kind of pretty in a weird way. But scary? Not really. By the end, Professor Aldrin called for a break. Students filtered out of the classroom in small groups, whispering to each other and occasionally glancing back at Riley. She packed up her things slowly, wondering if she'd somehow failed the exercise. Riley, please remain for a moment, Professor Aldrin called. She approached his desk nervously. Did I do something wrong? Wrong? No. Concerning? Perhaps. His forearms folded in what Riley thought might be the Centaurian equivalent of crossing your arms. I am going to run a medical scan with your permission. I need to ensure your threat detection systems are functioning properly. For a species to survive, they must be able to recognize danger. Riley submitted to the scan, standing still while invisible beams of light passed over her body. The results appeared on Professor Aldrin's screen, and he studied them with increasing confusion. Your hearing is exceptional. Your neurological responses are normal. Your stress hormone production is functioning properly. He looked at her with something that might have been concern. Riley, I have been teaching this course for 19 years. I have never had a student show zero response to these recordings, not one. Even species from relatively safe worlds show some instinctive reaction. Maybe Earth predators are just louder, Riley suggested. Professor Aldrin's feathers went completely still. Earth has predators? Well, yeah. Lots of them. Lions, tigers, bears, wolves, sharks, crocodiles. She trailed off as Professor Aldrin's skin seemed to pale beneath his feathers. Are you okay? Your world has multiple apex predator species? I mean, we call them that, but humans are pretty safe from most of them nowadays. We've got cities and buildings and stuff. Professor Aldrin sat down slowly, all 4 arms bracing against his desk. Riley, I need you to return tomorrow for an extended lesson. I will need to do some research tonight. Please do not mention this conversation to the other students just yet. Riley agreed, though she didn't really understand what the big deal was. As she left the classroom, she heard Professor Aldrin speaking rapidly into his communication device. Something about consulting with the xenobiology department and requesting emergency access to Earth's ecological database. She headed to her next class, still puzzled. The whole thing seemed like such an overreaction. So what if Earth had some predators? Every planet had animals. Some were dangerous, sure, but that's why humans had built cities and developed technology. It wasn't like people on Earth spent every day running from lions. Riley didn't know it yet. But Professor Aldrin had just realized something that would change how the entire academy looked at humanity. Earth wasn't just a planet with predators. According to the preliminary data he was pulling up, Earth had more apex predator species than some entire galactic sectors, and humans didn't just survive there. They thrived there. They lived their normal, boring, everyday lives surrounded by creatures that would be considered the ultimate threat on most other worlds. As Riley walked through the corridors to her next class, students moved out of her way with nervous glances. Word was already spreading about the human who didn't fear predator sounds. She thought they were just being weird. She had no idea they were beginning to be afraid of her. 3 departments had sent representatives to observe the next class session. Riley noticed them standing in the back of the classroom, holding data pads and whispering to each other. It made her nervous. She'd just wanted to be a normal exchange student, maybe make some friends and learn about alien cultures. Instead, she'd somehow become a research subject overnight. Professor Aldrin seemed energized in a way Riley hadn't seen before. His feathers were bright and alert, and all 4 of his arms were busy organizing holographic displays. The other students filed in quietly, many of them staring at Riley with expressions she couldn't quite read. Fear, curiosity? Both? Today we continue our study of threat recognition, Professor Aldrin announced. But with a modification to our methodology, Riley has agreed to participate in a more comprehensive examination of human fear responses. This may provide valuable data for understanding how different species process danger signals. Pip raised a small paw from her desk. Professor, is it true that Riley's planet has actual predators living on it? Like wild ones? We will address that shortly, Professor Aldrin said. First, the exercise. I have prepared a series of 10 audio samples. Riley, I need you to listen carefully and tell me if any of them cause you concern. The rest of the class will respond naturally, and we will observe the differences. The first recording played. It was a snarling, snapping sound with heavy breathing behind it. Around Riley, students reacted immediately. Renth's talons dug into his desk. Pip dove under her seat. 3 students in the front row activated their emergency beacons before Professor Aldrin could stop them. Riley frowned, concentrating. That sounds like maybe a big dog when they're being territorial. The classroom went silent except for Pip's muffled whimpering from under her desk. A dog, Professor Aldrin repeated slowly. You keep these creatures as companions, yes? Well, yeah. People love dogs. They're pets. My neighbor has 3 of them. One of the observing scientists in the back made a choking sound. Professor Aldrin moved to the next recording without comment. This one was a wet, hissing growl that seemed to echo. Half the students looked away from the speakers, as if breaking eye contact with the source of the sound would help. Dola's tank water churned with her distress. Snake? Riley guessed. Or maybe an alligator. It's got that reptile quality to it. These animals also exist on your world? Sure, we've got lots of reptiles. Some of them are pretty dangerous, but mostly they leave people alone if you leave them alone. My uncle in Florida sees alligators in his backyard sometimes. Your uncle lives near these creatures intentionally? Professor Aldrin's voice had gone very quiet. I mean, he lives there for work. The alligators were there first, technically. The third recording was a roar that made the room's audio system vibrate. It was deep and powerful, the kind of sound you felt in your chest. Every student who wasn't already hiding did so now. Renth had gone completely flat against his desk, making himself as small as possible despite his size. Riley actually smiled. Oh, that's definitely a big cat. Lion, maybe? Or a tiger? We learned about them in school. They're really beautiful animals. There are these nature documentaries where you can watch them hunt and everything. You watch them hunt, Professor Aldrin said. It wasn't a question. For entertainment. Well, yeah. It's educational. They're amazing predators. Super strong, really fast, and they work in groups with these complex strategies. Riley noticed everyone staring at her again. What, it's interesting. Nature's cool. Professor Aldrin sat down at his desk heavily. He pulled up a holographic display that showed Riley's biometric data streaming in real time. Her heart rate was steady at 62 beats per minute. Her stress hormones were at baseline. Her pupils weren't dilated. According to every measurable indicator, she might as well have been listening to elevator music. 7 more recordings, he said. Please continue. They went through each one. A howling pack sound that Pip identified as similar to predators from her homeworld. A clicking, chattering noise from some kind of insect swarm. A deep, resonant humming that apparently came from a predator that hunted through vibration. A shrieking call that operated partially in frequencies most species couldn't hear but felt in their bones. An underwater thrumming that made the walls seem to pulse. Riley found all of them interesting. Some were pretty. Some were weird. None of them scared her even a little bit. By the end, Professor Aldrin dismissed the class early. Students practically ran from the room. Only Pip remained, peeking out from under her desk. Riley walked over to help her up. Are you okay? Riley asked gently. Pip's enormous eyes blinked at her. How are you not scared? Those sounds. They're death. They're everything we're supposed to run from. I don't know, Riley said honestly. They just sound like animals to me. We have animals on Earth that make lots of different sounds. You get used to it, but you said your world has predators. Real ones. How does anyone sleep? How do you go outside? Riley helped Pip to her feet, noting how the small alien was trembling. We learn what's dangerous and how to avoid it. Most predators don't want to mess with humans anyway. We're too big, too loud, and we fight back. Plus, we've got animal control services and wildlife management and stuff. It's pretty safe. Pip stared at her like she'd just said something impossible. You fight back? Against predators? I mean, if we have to. Usually we just scare them off. Make noise, look big, throw stuff. Most animals want easy prey, not a fight. One of the observing scientists approached. She was a meridian like Dola, standing in a mobile water suit. Riley Brooks? I am Dr. Holvin from the Xenobiology Department. Would you be willing to answer some questions about Earth? I guess. When you say Earth has predators, how many species are we discussing? Riley thought about it. I don't know exactly, hundreds. Maybe thousands if you count insects and fish and stuff. There are lots of different environments, so different predators in each one. Dr. Holvin's bioluminescence flickered rapidly. Hundreds. And you said humans have domesticated some of these predators? Well, dogs used to be wolves. That was like 15,000 years ago, though. We've been living with dogs for a really long time. Some people keep cats too, and they're related to the big cats like lions. Oh, and falcons for hunting, horses for riding, even though horses aren't predators. We domesticated lots of animals. You domesticated wolves, Dr. Holvin said slowly. Pack hunters. Apex predators on most worlds. You brought them into your homes. They're not wolves anymore. They're dogs. We bred them to be friendly and helpful. They protect our homes, help people who can't see, do rescue work, stuff like that. They're part of the family. Professor Aldrin had been typing frantically on his datapad. Riley, I need to show you something. Please come look at this display. Riley walked over. The screen showed Earth from space, then zoomed in to show different regions. In each region, text appeared listing predator species. Africa had lions, leopards, cheetahs, hyenas, crocodiles, hippos, dozens more. Asia had tigers, bears, wolves, rhinos. The Americas had jaguars, cougars, bears, wolves, alligators, piranhas. Australia had sharks, crocodiles, snakes, spiders. The ocean listings went on for pages. This is just a preliminary survey, Professor Aldrin said. We have not even begun to catalog the smaller predators, insects, parasites, or microscopic organisms. Riley, your planet is... There is no other way to say this. Your planet is a death world. A what? Dr. Holvin pulled up another display. The Galactic Concordance classifies planets on a hazard scale. Most civilizations evolve on Class 1 through 4 worlds. Minimal predators, stable climates, manageable challenges. Class 5 and 6 worlds are considered harsh. Class 7 and 8 are dangerous. Class 9 and 10 are labeled death worlds, planets where survival requires constant vigilance and where most galactic species would die quickly. Okay, Riley said, not sure where this was going. Earth is Class 12, but you said the scale goes to 10. It did. Professor Aldrin said quietly. We had to extend it. Riley, your planet has oxygen levels high enough to fuel organisms of incredible size. Your gravity is significantly higher than galactic standard. Your weather systems include phenomena that would destroy cities on most worlds. Your tectonic activity means constant earthquakes and volcanoes. And despite all of this, you have thousands of predator species that have evolved to thrive in these conditions. Riley looked at the lists again. She'd never thought of Earth as particularly dangerous. It was just home. So what does this mean? It means, Renth said from across the room, surprising everyone since they'd thought he'd left, that humans are not just survivors of a death world. You are the apex predator of a death world. You dominated a planet that most species could not even visit safely. He walked closer, his feathers still pressed flat in a fear response, but his eyes were bright with something else. Respect, maybe. My people pride ourselves on warrior traditions. We have poems and songs about courage in the face of danger. But Riley, my world has no predators. The most dangerous thing on my planet is weather. We invented the concept of warriors because we had no real threats to test ourselves against. We evolved on a garden world, Pip said quietly, still standing close to Riley. Perfect temperature, gentle rains, plants that gave us everything we needed. The idea of a predator was something we read about in galactic databases. We thought we understood fear. She looked up at Riley with those enormous eyes. But you live with that fear every day. You grew up surrounded by creatures that could kill you, and you learned to not just survive, but to walk among them like it was nothing. You tamed wolves. You swim in water with sharks. You explore jungles with jaguars and snakes. You do not do this because you are not afraid. You do this because on your world there was no choice. You had to learn to walk through fear or die. Riley felt uncomfortable with how they were looking at her. I'm not special. Every human deals with the same stuff. We just grew up with it. You'd be the same if you were from Earth. No, Dr. Holvin said firmly. We would not. Physiologically, most species could not even breathe your air properly. The oxygen would damage our systems. The gravity would crush some of us. The temperature fluctuations would kill others. And even if we survived the environment, we would freeze in terror at the first predator sound. You heard those recordings? Every species in that room experienced immediate, uncontrollable fear responses. Except you. So what happens now? Riley asked. Do I have to leave the academy? Leave? Professor Aldrin looked shocked. No. Riley, do you know why humans were invited to join the Galactic Concordance? It was not random chance. We need what you have. We need that ability to think clearly in the face of danger. We need people who do not freeze when faced with predators. Why? The room was quiet for a moment. Then Professor Aldrin said, because despite all our peace and civilization, the galaxy is still a dangerous place. And sometimes we need someone who knows how to walk through fear. Come back tomorrow. There is much more you need to understand about why you are here. Word had spread through the academy faster than Riley could have imagined. By morning, everyone seemed to know about the human who didn't fear predator sounds. Students moved out of her way in the corridors. Some stared openly. Others whispered behind their hands or wings or tentacles. Riley felt like a specimen under a microscope, and she hated it. When she entered Professor Aldrin's classroom, she found it packed with observers. Not just a few scientists this time, but at least 30 faculty members lining the walls. Even Headmaster Trell had come, his branched, tree-like body taking up space in the corner. His presence made everything feel more serious and official. The regular students filed in nervously. Pip stuck close to Riley as she had been doing since yesterday. Renth nodded respectfully when he passed. Dola's tank was positioned near the front, her bioluminescent pattern showing clear anxiety and rapid color shifts. Professor Aldrin stood before the class with unusual solemnity. Thank you all for coming today. What we will experience in this session will be uncomfortable for many of you. However, it is important for understanding. Riley has been very patient with our questions about Earth. Today we will hear what daily life sounds like on a Class 12 death world. Riley's stomach dropped. Wait, what? With your parents' permission, we obtained audio recordings from your neighborhood in Detroit. They were quite cooperative. Your mother said, and I quote, "Maybe this will help people understand Riley better." She seemed to find the whole situation amusing. You called my mom? Riley felt her face heat up with embarrassment. Standard protocol for educational exercises involving personal materials, Professor Aldrin assured her. Do not worry. She spoke very highly of you. She also included several recordings from different times of day. I have selected what she labeled as a typical Saturday morning. She said this would be relatively quiet. Riley's heart sank. Saturday mornings in her neighborhood were not quiet. Before we begin, Professor Aldrin continued, I want to emphasize that for Riley, these sounds represent safety and home. They may not sound that way to us. Remember that context shapes perception. What is normal on one world may be terrifying on another. Let us listen with open minds. He dimmed the lights and activated the audio system. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the recording began. The first sound was birdsong, which made several students relax. Birds were nice. Birds were safe. Then a dog started barking in the distance. Not a friendly bark. The aggressive, territorial bark of a large animal protecting its space. Pip's ears went flat against her head. That's just Mrs. Patterson's dog, Riley said automatically. He barks at squirrels. He's all noise, no bite. The barking continued for a few more seconds, then faded. A new sound emerged, a mechanical roar that made several students jump. It was a lawnmower starting up somewhere nearby, but to ears that had never heard one, it sounded like a predator's growl mixed with machinery. Grass-cutting tool, Riley explained. Mr. Chen mows his lawn every Saturday morning at 8. Super reliable. But the class wasn't listening to her explanations. They were responding to the sounds with growing alarm. The lawnmower was joined by a car driving past. Bass-heavy music thumping from its speakers so loud the classroom speakers vibrated. Then someone shouted in greeting to a neighbor, their voice echoing off buildings. A car alarm went off somewhere, adding its piercing wail to the mix. Renth's feathers were completely flattened. Dola had gone dark in her tank. 3 students near the door were quietly edging toward the exit. Please remain seated, Professor Aldrin called. Remember, this is a normal morning. Riley experiences this regularly. A motorcycle revved its engine, the sound aggressive and mechanical. Then came the unmistakable sound of cats fighting in an alley, all yowls and hisses. A garbage truck rumbled past, its hydraulics hissing and grinding as it compressed trash. Someone started using a chainsaw for tree trimming, the high-pitched whine cutting through all the other noise. Pip made a small distressed sound and fainted, slumping in her seat. Riley immediately moved to help her, but Professor Aldrin gestured for her to wait. A medical assistant came forward to check on Pip, confirmed she was just overwhelmed, and stayed with her. The recording continued. There were shouts from kids playing basketball in someone's driveway. A door slammed. Someone's home security system announced in a loud, mechanical voice that the front door was open. Wind chimes clanged discordantly. A delivery truck beeped as it backed up. And then in the distance there was a sharp crack that could have been fireworks or could have been something else entirely. Probably fireworks, Riley said, though she wasn't completely sure. People set them off all the time, even when it's not a holiday. Several students had their emergency beacons activated now. Renth was making a low keening sound. Dola's water was churning like she was trying to burrow into the bottom of her tank. One student had actually left the room, unable to take it anymore. Faculty members along the walls were showing clear signs of stress, shifting their weight, adjusting their positions, some with their hands near their own communication devices. And through it all, Riley stood there listening to the sounds of home. She could picture her street so clearly. The faded brick apartment buildings, the cracked sidewalk where weeds pushed through, Mrs. Patterson's house with the chain-link fence, the corner store where Mr. Chen always gave her free candy when she bought soda, the basketball hoop without a net, the neighborhood cats that lived in the alley, the sound of life happening all around, chaotic and loud and completely normal. She yawned, sudden and unexpected. The movement made several students stare at her in disbelief. But she couldn't help it. These sounds were making her homesick and sleepy, the way familiar things do when you've been away from them for a while. "Sorry," she said, covering her mouth. "This just sounds like a Saturday morning. Usually I'd still be asleep at this time. These are like white noise sounds for me." "White noise," Professor Aldrin repeated, his voice strange. "These sounds help you sleep?" "Well, I'm used to them. Silence actually keeps me awake sometimes. It's too weird." The recording played for another minute, capturing the overlapping sounds of a neighborhood fully awake and busy. Then it faded out. Professor Aldrin turned the lights back up. The classroom looked like a disaster area. Pip was being tended to by medical staff. Renth looked like he'd been through a war. Dola's tank water was only now beginning to settle. Half the students were crying or making distressed noises. The faculty members along the walls looked shaken. One of them, an insectoid professor Riley didn't know, spoke up. "That is what you consider a quiet morning?" "I mean, it's not the quietest. Sundays are quieter, but yeah, pretty normal." There were at least 40 distinct sound sources in that 5-minute recording, Dr. Holven said, consulting her datapad with trembling hands. Multiple predator calls, mechanical roars, impact sounds, territorial warnings, and what may have been weapons fire. The audio assault was constant and overlapping. On most civilized worlds, those sound levels would trigger automatic emergency responses. "It's just a neighborhood," Riley protested. "People living their lives. It's not dangerous." Headmaster Trell spoke for the first time, his voice like wind through leaves. "Riley Brooks, I have lived for 600 years. I have visited 400 worlds. I have stood in war zones and disaster areas. I have never, in all that time, heard anything quite like what we just experienced, and you are telling me that this is where you grew up. This is where you felt safe." "It is safe," Riley insisted. "Nobody gets hurt from normal neighborhood sounds. Yeah, it's loud, but you get used to it." "That is precisely the point," Headmaster Trell said. "You got used to it. You learned to sleep through sounds that would send most species running for their lives. You learn to distinguish between actual danger and mere noise in an environment where both are constant. Your brain developed the ability to filter threat from normalcy in conditions that most of us would find impossible to navigate." Renth stood up shakily. "Riley, I need to tell you something. My people have a word, Kevreth. It means a warrior who has been tested in actual combat and survived, who has looked at death and walked away. We use it as the highest honor. There are perhaps 300 Kevreth alive on my world right now, out of billions." He looked at her with something like awe. "Every human on your planet is Kevreth. Every single one. You are all tested by your world every single day. and you do not even realize it because it is so normal to you. You are a species of warriors who do not even know they are warriors. Riley felt uncomfortable. I'm not a warrior. I'm just a student. I like video games and hanging out with friends and avoiding homework. I'm completely normal. That is what makes it so remarkable, Professor Aldrin said quietly. You are normal. That recording was of a normal morning. The fact that you consider it peaceful is perhaps the most terrifying thing I have ever encountered. Pip had woken up and was being helped to her feet. She looked at Riley with wide, scared eyes. How do you live like that? How do you not spend every moment afraid? Riley thought about it, really considered the question. I guess because it's all I've ever known. Yeah, there are dangerous things on Earth, but there are also good things. Friends and family and places you love. You learn what to be careful of and what's safe. You learn the difference between a dog barking at a squirrel and a dog that's actually dangerous. You learn that car alarms are annoying, but not threats. You figure out what sounds mean trouble and what sounds are just life happening. But the chaos, Dola said, her voice bubbling from her tank. How do you think clearly with so much chaos? It's not chaos when you understand it, Riley said. It's just life. Complicated and messy and, yeah, sometimes loud. But it's where people live and love and grow up. My neighborhood might sound scary to you, but to me it's where my friends are. Where I learned to ride a bike. Where Mrs. Patterson gives me cookies when I help her bring in groceries. Where the ice cream truck comes by on hot days. She looked around at all the frightened faces. I'm sorry the recording scared you. I didn't know it would be that bad. But that's my home. And I miss it, even with all the noise. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Headmaster Trell spoke again. Riley Brooks, what you have shown us today is important. Your people have something we desperately need. Not fearlessness, but the ability to find peace in chaos. To build homes and communities, and joy in environments that would break most of us. We asked humanity to join the Concordance for many reasons. Today I understand those reasons better than ever before. He moved toward the door, his branched body rustling. Professor Aldrin, please excuse Riley from classes for the rest of the day. She should rest, and someone should check on all these students. I suspect we will need counseling services. As the room began to empty, students leaving in shaky groups, Riley sat down heavily in her chair. She'd just wanted to be normal. Instead, she'd apparently traumatized her entire class with the sound of her neighborhood. How was she supposed to make friends now when everyone was terrified of her normal? Pip approached slowly, still unsteady. Riley, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think, could you maybe teach us how to not be so scared? I do not want to faint every time I hear something dangerous. You are brave, and I want to be brave too. Riley looked at the small, trembling alien who was trying so hard to be courageous. I'm not brave, I'm just used to stuff, but yeah, if you want, I can try to help. We can start small. Pip's face brightened slightly. Thank you. And Riley, your neighborhood sounds terrible, but the way you talked about it, about the people, and the ice cream truck and learning to ride a bike, that part sounded nice. Riley smiled. Yeah, it is nice, even with all the noise. Riley had never been to the headmaster's office before. The corridors leading to it were older than the rest of the academy, with walls that seemed to be made of living wood that shifted and breathed quietly. Students rarely came here unless something serious had happened. Riley's stomach was in knots. Maybe they'd decided she was too disruptive. Maybe they were sending her home. Headmaster Trell's office was enormous, with a ceiling that stretched up into what looked like a forest canopy. Natural light filtered through leaves that might have been part of the structure or part of Trell himself. It was hard to tell where the headmaster ended and the room began. He was a branched one, his species ancient and respected throughout the Concordance. Some said they could live for thousands of years. Sit, Riley Brooks, Trell said, his voice rustling like wind through branches. You are not in trouble. Riley sat in a chair that adjusted itself to her height. Around the room she noticed other people. Dr. Holven was there in her water suit. Professor Aldrin stood near a window. Several others she didn't recognize occupied various seats and perches. Do you know why we asked you here? Trell asked. Because I scared everyone with the recording? No, because you revealed something we needed to see. Something about humanity that data files and reports could not convey. Trell's branches shifted, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed Earth rotating slowly in space. Tell me, what do you know about how worlds are classified in the concordance? Not much, Riley admitted. Just what Professor Aldrin mentioned. There's a scale for how dangerous planets are. Correct. When we discover a new world, we assess its hazards. This determines many things, including whether it can be colonized, what precautions visitors must take, and what kind of support developing civilizations might need. The display changed, showing a list. Class 1 worlds are garden planets. Stable climates, minimal geological activity, few if any predators. Most concordant species evolved on Class 1 or 2 worlds. Images appeared showing peaceful landscapes, gentle animals grazing, calm oceans. Riley recognized them as the kinds of nature documentaries that would put people to sleep. They were so peaceful. Class 3 and 4 worlds have some challenges, Trell continued. Seasonal variations, moderate predators, some geological activity. Still quite safe. Class 5 and 6 begin to be difficult. Stronger weather, more dangerous animals, environments that require adaptation. Most species consider these harsh worlds. The images changed, showing more dramatic landscapes, storms, larger animals, volcanic activity in the distance. Still, nothing looked particularly scary to Riley. Class 7 and 8 are dangerous, Trell said. Significant predator presence, unstable weather patterns, high geological activity. Few civilizations develop naturally on such worlds. Those that do are considered hardy and resilient. Now the images showed things that looked more serious. Massive creatures that might have been predators, lightning storms, earthquakes, but still Riley had seen worse in documentaries about Earth. Class 9 and 10 are death worlds, Trell said, and his voice became somber. Planets where survival is uncertain, where predators dominate, where the environment itself seems hostile to life. We have records of only 3 civilizations that developed naturally on Class 10 worlds. They are all extinct now. The conditions were simply too harsh to sustain technological development. The images became frightening. Massive predators with enormous teeth, volcanic hellscapes, storms that looked like they could tear buildings apart. Riley understood now why the other students had been so scared. Earth, Trell said quietly, is Class 12. The number hung in the air like an accusation. We had to extend the scale, Dr. Holven explained. Your planet exceeded every parameter we used to define death worlds. Let me show you why. The display shifted to show data streams. Earth's atmospheric oxygen content is 21%. This is extremely high. It allows for the rapid metabolism of large organisms and contributes to frequent, intense fires. Most concordant species require 16 to 18% oxygen. Higher concentrations are toxic to many of us over extended periods. Riley had known Earth's air was different, but she hadn't realized it was dangerous to others. Your gravity is 1.4 times galactic standard, Dr. Holven continued. This may not sound significant, but it means everything on your planet evolved to be stronger, more robust. Your bones are denser, your muscles more powerful. You can carry loads and withstand impacts that would seriously injure most species. Your weather systems, Professor Aldrin added, pulling up new images, include hurricanes with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, tornadoes that can destroy entire communities in minutes, tsunamis that can travel across your oceans at the speed of aircraft, electrical storms so powerful they can be seen from space. On a Class 1 world, weather is gentle. On Earth, weather kills thousands every year despite all your technology. Riley watched footage of hurricanes, tornadoes, floods. She'd seen this stuff on the news her whole life. It was terrible when it happened, but people rebuilt. They adapted. They kept living in the same places because it was home. Your tectonic activity, another scientist said, causes hundreds of earthquakes daily. Major quakes occur regularly enough that you have entire fields of study dedicated to them. You have volcanic chains that could, theoretically, end civilization on your planet if they all erupted simultaneously, and yet millions of people live near these volcanoes because the soil is good for farming. You mentioned that humans swim in your oceans, Dr. Holven said. Let me show you what lives in those oceans. The display filled with images, sharks of dozens of species, some as long as buses, jellyfish that could kill with a touch, octopi that could squeeze through impossibly small spaces, crocodiles that could bite through bone, stingrays with venomous barbs, electric eels, piranha swarms. The list goes on for hundreds of pages. Your oceans contain more apex predators than some entire galactic sectors. What about land? Riley asked, feeling like she should defend Earth somehow. Land is safer, right? The display changed again. Lions, tigers, leopards, cheetahs, wolves, bears of multiple species, hyenas, wild dogs, crocodiles, alligators, venomous snakes by the dozens, spiders with lethal bites, scorpions, poisonous frogs, aggressive hippos, charging elephants, territorial rhinos. The list went on and on. And we have not even discussed the smaller threats, Professor Aldrin said. Insects that carry diseases lethal to humans. Parasites that can control behavior. Bacteria and viruses that have killed millions throughout your history. Your planet attacks you at every scale, from the microscopic to the massive. Riley felt overwhelmed. But we manage. We've built cities and societies. We have medicine and technology. Exactly, Trell said. That is what makes humanity so remarkable. You did not just survive a Class 12 death world. You conquered it. You became the apex predator among thousands of apex predators. Let me show you how. The display shifted to show human evolution. Early hominids running across savannas, chasing prey for hours until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Humans throwing spears with deadly accuracy, a skill almost unique in the galaxy. Humans working in coordinated groups, communicating with complex language, planning ambushes and strategies. Persistence hunting, Dr. Holven explained. You can run for longer than almost any animal on your planet. You sweat to cool yourselves, allowing you to chase prey through the hottest parts of the day when other predators must rest. You can track wounded animals for days if necessary. To be hunted by a human is to know you will never be allowed to rest. Riley had learned about this in school, but hearing it described by an alien scientist made it sound almost sinister. Thrown weapons, Professor Aldrin said. Humans can throw objects with speed and accuracy that few species in the galaxy can match. This allowed your ancestors to kill from a distance to bring down prey much larger than themselves. Combined with your pack hunting tactics, you could kill almost anything on your planet. Tool creation, another scientist added. You don't just use tools. You create them, constantly innovating. You went from stone spears to nuclear weapons in a geological blink. You adapted to every environment on your planet through technology, allowing you to survive in deserts, tundras, jungles, mountains, even underwater for limited periods. And perhaps most impressive, Trell said, you domesticated other apex predators. You took wolves, one of the most successful pack hunters on your planet, and you made them into companions. You selectively bred them for thousands of years. You did not conquer wolves through violence. You allied with them. You made them family. The display showed dogs of every breed, from tiny lapdogs to massive working animals, all descended from wolves. Riley thought of Mrs. Patterson's dog, how it barked at squirrels but let children pet it gently. No other species in Concordance history has done this, Trell said. To take a predator and make it a friend requires a level of patience, understanding, and confidence that most species simply do not possess. You did it so long ago that you no longer even remember it as an achievement. To you, it is simply normal that predators live in your homes and protect your children. Renth, who had been silent until now, spoke from a corner of the room. Riley hadn't even noticed him there. I told my family about the recordings, about Riley. My father asked me if I was afraid of her. I said no. He asked why not, if humans are such capable predators. He walked closer, his golden feathers catching the light. I said because Riley chose to come here to learn, not to hunt. Because she helped Pip when Pip fainted. Because she looked sad when she realized the neighborhood sounds had scared us. I said humans might be predators, but they are also kind. My father said that makes them more dangerous, not less. A predator that can choose mercy is more frightening than one that cannot. I don't want people to be afraid of me, Riley said quietly. We are not afraid, Trell said gently. We are in awe. There is a difference. Riley, do you know why humanity was invited to join the Concordance when we discovered you? For cultural exchange? That was part of it. But there was another reason. A pressing one. Trell's branches shifted and the display changed to show star maps. 30 years ago, we encountered another species, The Vor they evolved on a Class 8 world. They are natural predators, aggressive and expansion-focused. They wanted territory and resources, and they were willing to take them by force. The display showed creatures that looked like they were built for hunting, sleek, powerful, with visible claws and sharp features. We tried to negotiate, Trell said. The Concordance has existed for 12,000 years, mostly in peace. We are not warriors. We are diplomats, scientists, artists, philosophers. When negotiation failed and the Vor attacked, we tried to fight. We failed. In 15 years, we lost 40 star systems. Our soldiers would freeze when facing Vor warriors. Ancient instincts overrode training. Prey cannot easily fight predators, even with technology. Riley began to understand where this was going. Then we found Earth, Professor Aldrin said. A world more dangerous than the Vor homeworld. A species that had not only survived, but thrived. We made contact carefully. We explained our situation. And humanity helped us. Human military advisors trained our forces, Dr. Holven said. Human soldiers volunteered for joint operations. And something changed. The Vor expected us to run. They expected fear. Instead, they faced humans who did not freeze, who adapted and improvised, who used tactics the Vor had never encountered. The war turned around. Within 2 years, the Vor sued for peace. We did not win through superior technology, Trell said. We won because humans taught us that fear is not permanent, that it can be acknowledged and moved through, that courage is not the absence of fear but action despite it. The Vor respected this. They became trading partners instead of enemies, and humanity became full members of the Concordance not as warriors but as teachers. Riley processed all of this. Her planet was more dangerous than she'd ever realized. Her species had evolved to survive things that would kill most aliens, and somehow this had made humanity valuable not for violence but for resilience. So what happens now? She asked. Now, Trell said, we need your help with a new problem. Trell manipulated the holographic display with movements of his branches, and the star map expanded to show a region of space Riley didn't recognize. A single system blinked red in the darkness. 3 days ago, we lost contact with Research Station Kepler, Trell explained. It is a joint facility, operated by both Concordance and Vor scientists. The station represents the peace between our peoples. 32 researchers live there studying the unique properties of a binary star system. What happened to them? Riley asked. We do not know. The last transmission was garbled, but it mentioned environmental system failures. We have tried to send automated probes, but they have not reported back. The station is in Vor territory, which complicates rescue efforts. Dr. Holven brought up technical readouts. The station has life support for approximately 2 weeks without power. It has been 3 days. If anyone is alive, they have perhaps 10 days remaining. Less if conditions are worse than we think. Why are you telling me this? Riley felt confused. I'm just a student. I'm not a rescue worker. The problem, Professor Aldrin said carefully, is political and psychological. Concordance rescue teams are afraid to enter Vor space. Despite the peace treaty, old fears remain. They worry about ambush, about being seen as invaders. They hesitate. And Vor rescue teams, Trell continued, are equally hesitant to act. They fear we will interpret their presence as aggression. Both sides are paralyzed by fear of misunderstanding. Meanwhile, people are dying. Human military forces could respond, Dr. Holven said, but they are 3 weeks away at best. By the time they arrive, everyone on that station will be dead. Riley looked at the star map, at the blinking red dot. There has to be something you can do. There is, Trell said. The Academy has resources. Fast ships meant for educational field trips. We have students from many worlds, including some from Vor families who are part of our exchange program. And we have you. Me? Riley, what we need is not a military force. We need a small group that can act quickly, that is not bound by political fear, and that can navigate danger without freezing. We need people who understand that fear and action can coexist. You want students to do this? Riley felt her heart racing. That's crazy. We're not trained. We're just kids. You are young, yes, Trell acknowledged. But you have something our adult rescue teams do not. You have already proven you can work together across species lines. You do not carry the same political burdens. And you have Riley Brooks, who has lived her entire life learning to navigate danger. I can't lead a rescue mission. I don't know how. Renth stepped forward. Riley, when Pip fainted, what did you do? I tried to help her. Exactly. You did not freeze. You did not panic. You saw someone who needed help and you acted. That is what leadership is. Not knowing everything but acting anyway when action is needed. This is asking too much, Riley protested. I could get people killed. People are already dying, Professor Aldrin said gently. We are not ordering you to do this. We are asking, if you say no, we will understand. But if you say yes, we will provide everything we can. A ship, supplies, whatever support we can give. Riley looked around the room at all the faces watching her. They were asking a 16-year-old to lead a rescue mission into potentially hostile space. It was insane, it was dangerous. It was probably going to go wrong. But people were dying, real people, with families and friends and lives they wanted to keep living. And everyone with the training and experience to help them was too afraid to act. She thought about her neighborhood, about the sounds that scared everyone else but meant home to her, about learning to walk past the aggressive dog because you knew it couldn't reach you through the fence, about knowing which streets to avoid at night and which ones were safe, about living with danger as part of normal life. If I do this, Riley said slowly, I need to choose my team. And everyone has to volunteer. Nobody gets forced into this. Agreed, Trell said. And we do this my way. I don't know military tactics or rescue procedures. I only know how to deal with scary situations by staying calm and thinking things through. That may be exactly what is needed. Riley took a deep breath. Then I need to talk to some people. Can you give me until tomorrow morning? Of course. But Riley, understand that time is critical. Every hour we delay reduces the chances of finding survivors. I know, Riley said. I'll be fast. She left the headmaster's office with her mind racing. This was crazy. This was dangerous. But if she didn't try, she'd spend the rest of her life wondering if she could have saved those people. Her first stop was Pip's dormitory. The small Quillen answered her door wrapped in a comfort blanket, her large eyes still showing stress from the earlier recordings. Riley? Pip's ears perked up slightly. Are you okay? I need to ask you something. It's important and kind of scary, so you can absolutely say no. Riley explained the situation as clearly as she could, the stranded researchers, the political paralysis, the request for a student rescue mission. Pip listened quietly, her expression moving from fear to concern to determination. You want me to come? Pip asked. But I fainted today. I am scared of everything. I would be useless. You wouldn't be useless, Riley said firmly. I need someone who can monitor communications and coordinate. Someone careful and detail-oriented. Someone who cares about people being safe. That's you, Pip. But I am scared. So am I, Riley admitted. I'm terrified. But those people need help. And being scared doesn't mean we can't help them. Pip was quiet for a long moment. Then she dropped her blanket and stood up straighter. If you are going, I am going. You helped me when I fainted. I will help you now. The next stop was Rent's quarters. The Skyborn opened his door immediately as if he'd been expecting her. You are going to Kepler Station, he said before Riley could speak. And you want me to accompany you. How did you know? Because you are Riley Brooks and you do not know how to leave people in danger. He stepped aside to let her in. I already packed a bag. I have been waiting for you to ask. This isn't going to be like your warrior stories, Riley warned. It's going to be scary and confusing. We might fail. Then we will fail trying, Renth said. That is more honorable than succeeding at doing nothing. Dola was harder to find. Riley eventually located her in one of the aquatic research labs, working on a school project even though it was late evening. A rescue mission? Dola's colors shifted through uncertainty. I am not brave like you, Riley. I study computer systems and aquatic biology. I have never left the Academy station. The station's computers might be damaged, Riley said. We might need someone who can interface with unfamiliar systems, figure out what went wrong, maybe restore some functions. I can't do that. But you can. What if I freeze when we get there? What if my fear makes me useless? Then we work through it together, Riley said. You don't have to be unafraid. You just have to try. Dola's colors swirled for a long moment, blues and greens mixing with flashes of orange stress. Then she settled into a steady purple. I will come. But Riley, you must promise me something. If I become too afraid to function, you will leave me somewhere safe and continue without me. Do not let my weakness endanger the mission. It's not weakness to be afraid, Riley said, and I won't leave anyone behind. We do this together or not at all. By the time Riley returned to her own dormitory, she had assembled a team of 7. Pip for communications, Renth for physical tasks, Dola for technical systems. 3 others had volunteered when word spread, each offering skills they thought might help. A branched one named Leaf who had medical training. A Vor student named Cress who could help with communication if they encountered Vor ships. And another human, a boy named David from Tokyo who had wilderness survival training. Riley spent the night planning with her team in the common room. They spread out star maps and station schematics, trying to anticipate what they might find. Nobody pretended this was safe. Nobody acted like it would be easy. But everyone who had volunteered stayed committed. "Why are you doing this?" Cress asked Riley at one point. The Vor student was intimidating to look at with scales and sharp features, but his voice was gentle. "You barely know these researchers. They are not your people." Riley thought about her answer carefully. On Earth, when someone needs help, you help them if you can. It doesn't matter if you know them. It just matters that they need help and you can do something. I grew up seeing firefighters run into burning buildings for strangers. I saw neighbors help each other after storms. I learned that being human means trying, even when it's hard. "That is why humans are dangerous," Cress said, but he was smiling slightly. "You do not calculate odds. You do not consider self-preservation. You simply act. The Vor respect this greatly. It is why we made peace." The next morning, Riley's team stood before Headmaster Trell in the docking bay. A sleek academy transport waited behind them, already fueled and supplied. Faculty members had worked through the night to prepare it. "This is highly irregular," Trell said, but there was warmth in his voice. "Students borrowing a ship without proper authorization. I could face serious consequences for allowing this." "Then why are you?" Riley asked. "Because sometimes the right thing and the proper thing are not the same. Because watching young people choose courage reminds me why I have spent 600 years working for peace. Because if we wait for perfect safety, we will wait forever while people die." He handed Riley a communication device. "This has direct access to my personal channel. If you need help, call me immediately. If you succeed, call me so I can notify the proper authorities before anyone realizes you borrowed a ship. If you fail," he paused. "If you fail, I will make sure everyone knows you tried." Riley took the device with shaking hands. This was really happening. They were really doing this. Her team boarded the ship, each of them carrying whatever supplies they thought they might need. Pip had communication equipment. Renth had emergency medical supplies. Dola had portable computer interfaces. They all had environment suits rated for station work. As Riley took the pilot's seat, David sitting beside her as co-pilot, she thought about her neighborhood. About Saturday mornings with all their chaos and noise. About learning to walk through fear because there was no other choice. She activated the ship's systems and requested clearance for departure. "Destination?" the control tower asked. "Kepler Station," Riley replied. "We have people to save." The ship launched smoothly, accelerating away from the academy and toward the unknown. Behind them, Headmaster Trell watched through the docking bay windows, his branches rustling with what might have been pride or worry or both. In the ship, 7 young people from 6 different worlds sat together, all of them afraid, all of them determined. They had no military training, no combat experience, no real authority to do what they were doing. But they had something else. They had each other, and they had Riley Brooks, who had spent 16 years learning that fear was just another noise in the background of living. They had a mission, and they were going to complete it or die trying. The stars stretched ahead of them as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. Somewhere in the darkness, 32 people waited to be rescued, probably not knowing that help was coming in the form of 7 scared students who refused to let fear stop them. It would take 3 days to reach Kepler Station. Riley hoped desperately that they would arrive in time. The journey to Kepler Station took 3 days of faster-than-light travel, and Riley used every hour to prepare her team. The ship's common area became their training ground, their planning room, and their therapy space all at once. On the first day, everyone was nervous energy and false confidence. They reviewed station schematics until they could navigate the layout in their sleep. Pip practiced emergency communication protocols. Renth and David went through basic rescue procedures. Dola familiarized herself with the station's computer architecture. Cress researched Vor customs and signals in case they encountered Vor ships. But on the second day, the reality of what they were doing settled in. Leaf, the young branched one with medical training, broke down crying during breakfast. I have only treated minor injuries in controlled environments. What if someone is badly hurt? What if I cannot save them? Riley sat beside Leaf, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Then we do our best and live with the outcome. That's all anyone can do. I'm scared too. I think we all are. You do not look scared, Leaf said, wiping at his eyes with a thin branch. That's because I've had practice.
On Earth, you learn to keep moving even when you're scared.
It doesn't mean the fear goes away. It just means you don't let it stop you. Riley looked around at her team. Let me tell you a story. When I was 10, there was a fire in the apartment building next to mine. Everyone was running out screaming. I was terrified. But then I saw Mrs. Patterson fall on the stairs. She's old and she was scared and nobody was stopping to help because they were all running. What did you do? Pip asked quietly. I was so scared I could barely breathe, but I ran to her anyway. I helped her up and we walked down together slow while smoke filled the stairwell. My mom found us outside and she was crying and yelling at me for being stupid. But Mrs. Patterson was alive. Being brave doesn't mean not feeling the fear. It means doing what needs to be done anyway. That story seemed to help. They spent the rest of the day sharing their own stories. Times they'd been afraid but acted anyway. Small moments of courage that had seemed insignificant at the time. Pip talked about the first time she'd spoken up in class despite her anxiety. Renth described standing up to bullies who mocked his people's warrior traditions. David shared how he'd gotten lost hiking once and had to spend a night alone in the woods before finding his way back. By the third day, they felt less like a random group of students and more like a team. They had inside jokes now. They knew each other's fears and strengths. When they dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Kepler system, they were as ready as they could be. The station came into view on their sensors, a wheel-shaped structure orbiting at a safe distance from the binary stars. It should have been lit up and bustling with activity. Instead, it was dark except for a few emergency lights flickering irregularly. Life signs? Riley asked Dola, who was monitoring the ship's sensors. Detecting 13 life signs, Dola reported, her colors flashing with relief. Wait, analyzing further. Some readings are very weak. Medical attention needed urgently. Only 13, Leaf asked. There should be 32 researchers. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Either 19 people were already dead, or they were in sections the sensors couldn't read. Neither option was comforting. Incoming transmission, Pip said suddenly. It's from a Vor ship. They're asking us to identify ourselves. Cress moved to the communication station. Let me speak to them. It will be better coming from another Vor. Riley nodded and Cress activated the channel. He spoke in the clicking, growling language of his people. The conversation went on for several tense minutes while the rest of the team waited. Finally, Cress closed the channel. They have been monitoring the station for 2 days, he explained. They want to help but fear the Concordance will interpret their presence as aggression. I told them we are a student rescue team, not military. They seemed confused but said they will not interfere. Can they help us? Riley asked. I asked. They said they would be willing, but they need authorization from their government. That could take days. The same political paralysis that trapped everyone else. Riley made a decision. Then we go in alone. Everyone, suit up. Pip, you stay on the ship and coordinate. If anything goes wrong, you get out of here and call for help. Don't try to save us. Just go. But Riley, that's an order. We need someone safe who can get help if this goes bad. Pip looked like she wanted to argue, but she nodded. Be careful, all of you. The rest of the team put on their environment suits and gathered at the airlock. Riley checked everyone's seals twice, making sure they were secure. The suits would protect them from vacuum and radiation, and had limited life support, but they were bulky and would make movement difficult. Dola, you'll access the station's systems through the maintenance port and see if you can restore power. Leaf, you're on medical. David and I will search for survivors. Renth, you're on structural assessment. If the station is coming apart, we need to know how much time we have. Cress, you're with me and David in case we find Vor researchers who are too injured or scared to trust non-Vor. Everyone confirmed their roles. Riley activated the airlock and they crossed the short distance to the station, using maneuvering thrusters built into their suits. The station's airlock was still functional, which was a good sign. It meant the hull was intact. Inside, the station was a mess. Debris floated in zero gravity. Emergency lights cast everything in red shadows. The temperature was barely above freezing. Their helmet displays showed dangerous radiation levels from the binary stars, enough that prolonged exposure would be lethal. But the station's shielding was holding for now. Team, report, Riley said over their suit communications. Medical bay is accessible, Leaf reported. I see 3 life signs inside. Moving to assist. I have located the computer core, Dola said. Attempting to interface now. Oh no. What is it? The environmental system did not fail randomly. It was sabotaged. Someone deliberately shut down life support and locked the controls. Riley felt cold fear settle in her stomach. Can you fix it? I can try, but whoever did this knew what they were doing. It will take time. We may not have time, Renth cut in. I am reading structural stress in the outer ring. Something impacted the station. There is a slow hull breach in Section 7. How slow? We have perhaps 8 hours before that section becomes completely compromised. Anyone in that section will need to be evacuated sooner. Riley made quick calculations. 8 hours to find survivors, get life support running, and evacuate anyone in danger. It would be tight. David, Cress with me. We're heading to Section 7. Everyone else continue your tasks. Update me every 10 minutes. They pushed through corridors filled with floating debris, following their helmet displays towards Section 7. The station was eerily quiet except for the occasional groan of stressed metal. They passed through several labs and living quarters, all empty. Then they heard it. A tapping sound, rhythmic and deliberate. Someone was alive and trying to signal for help. Follow that sound, Riley directed. They traced it to a sealed door. The controls were damaged, but through a small window they could see movement inside. Can we open it? David asked. Cress examined the door mechanism. It's jammed, but I think I can force it. Stand back. Using his natural Vor strength, Cress pulled at the door's manual release. Metal groaned and protested, but slowly the door began to open. On the other side, they found 3 Vor engineers and 2 concordant scientists huddled together in environment suits. One of the Vor was badly injured, her leg trapped under fallen equipment. The Vor looked at Riley's team with wary eyes. One of them growled something in their language. Cress responded, his tone calm and reassuring. The injured Vor's expression shifted from fear to relief. They thought we were here to harm them. Cress translated. There are rumors that the sabotage was done by concordance extremists who oppose cooperation with Vor. They have been hiding, afraid to trust anyone. Tell them we're here to help everyone, Riley said. We don't care about politics. We care about getting people home safely. While Cress translated, Riley assessed the situation. The injured Vor couldn't move without help. The others were weak from cold and stress but mobile. David, help me free her leg. Cress asked them if they know where the other survivors are. Working together, they carefully lifted the equipment, pinning the injured Vor. She hissed in pain but didn't cry out. Riley had no medical training beyond basic first aid, but she could see the leg was badly broken. We need to get her to Leaf immediately. There are others trapped in the engineering section, one of the concordant scientists said, his voice shaking. The door sealed when the sabotage happened. We tried to reach them but couldn't get through. We heard them for the first 2 days, but then the sound stopped. Riley's heart sank, but she pushed the feeling aside. David, get these 5 back to the medical bay. Cress and I will check engineering. Move fast but careful. That hull breach is getting worse. David nodded and began guiding the survivors back through the corridors. Riley and Cress pushed deeper into the station, toward the engineering section. The radiation levels were higher here, their suits' alarms beeping warnings. They had maybe an hour before exposure became dangerous even through the shielding. The engineering section door was sealed tight, its controls completely dark. Riley pressed her helmet against the door, trying to hear anything on the other side. Nothing. No tapping. No voices, just silence. We need Dola, Riley said. This is beyond what we can manually override. She radioed back to the team. Dola, status update? I have partial power restored to critical systems, Dola responded, her voice tight with concentration. Life support is coming back online slowly. But Riley, I found something in the system logs. The sabotage was done from inside the station 3 days ago. Someone locked 8 people in engineering and vented the atmosphere in that section. Riley felt sick. Are they still alive? Sensors show 8 life signs in engineering, but they are very weak. The section still has no atmosphere. If they are alive, they have been in emergency suits for 3 days. Those suits only have 72 hours of oxygen. They were almost out of time. Can you open the door remotely? I can try. Give me 2 minutes. Riley and Cress waited, floating in the corridor, watching their oxygen counters tick down. Every second felt like an hour. Finally, the door's lights flickered on and it began to slide open. The scene inside was grim. 8 researchers in emergency suits were scattered around the engineering bay. Some were unconscious. Others were barely moving. Riley and Cress pushed inside quickly, checking each person. "This one is still conscious," Cress said, helping a branched one researcher who was trying to communicate. The researcher pointed frantically at something across the room. Riley followed the gesture and saw it. A figure in a suit slumped over a control panel, not moving. But what caught her attention was the tool still clutched in their hand. A plasma cutter, the kind used to cut through metal. And on the wall next to them, half finished, was a hole cut through into the next section. They were trying to cut their way out, Riley realized. They almost made it. "We need to get them out now," Cress said. "Their oxygen is nearly depleted." "I can carry 2 at a time. I'll take one. We make as many trips as needed." They worked frantically, pulling unconscious and semi-conscious researchers out of engineering and toward the medical bay. Riley's muscles burned with the effort of moving people in zero gravity while wearing a bulky suit. Her own oxygen was getting low, but she pushed through it. On their 3rd trip, Renth's voice came over the radio, urgent and scared. "Riley, the hull breach just got worse. Section 7 is venting atmosphere. We have maybe 20 minutes before it completely decompresses." "How many people are still in that section?" According to Dola's scans, 4 life signs. Riley and Cress had just delivered another 2 engineers to Leaf's medical bay. The small branched one was working miracles, moving between patients with careful efficiency, administering oxygen and treating injuries. But he looked overwhelmed. "Leaf, can they be moved?" Riley asked, gesturing to the patients. "Some of them, yes. But 3 are too critical. Moving them could kill them." Riley made a decision she hoped she wouldn't regret. "Pip, I need you to come over here. We need to evacuate the critical patients to our ship. Can you pilot the ship closer and dock with the station?" There was a long pause. Riley could imagine Pip's fear, her hesitation. Then quietly, "Yes, I can do it. Coming now." "Good. Renth, David, go to Section 7 and get those 4 people out. I don't care if you have to drag them, just get them to safety. Cress, help Leaf prepare patients for transport. Dola, how's the power situation?" "Main power is restored," Dola reported. "Life support is at 40% capacity and climbing. But Riley, the saboteur, is still on the station. I found them on the security feeds. They are moving toward the reactor control room." Riley felt adrenaline spike through her system. If they reach the reactor, can they cause more damage? They could trigger a meltdown. It would destroy the station and kill everyone aboard. "Where is reactor control from my position?" 2 sections forward, 1 level down." "But Riley, you should wait for help. This person is dangerous. We don't have time to wait. Everyone else, continue evacuation. I'm going after the saboteur." "Riley, no." Pip's voice was panicked over the radio. "You cannot go alone. I'm not going to fight them. I'm just going to stop them from reaching the reactor. Keep working, all of you. We're running out of time." Riley pushed off down the corridor before anyone could argue further. She moved as fast as she dared in zero gravity, bouncing off walls when she needed to change direction. Her helmet display showed her the route to reactor control. She reached the reactor level and saw a figure ahead in a full environment suit, working at a control panel. They must have heard her approach because they turned and Riley saw it was a human. A man, middle-aged, with wild eyes visible through his helmet. "Stay back," he said in English, his voice crackling over the radio. "You don't understand. They can't be trusted. The Vor can't be trusted." Riley kept her distance but held up her hands peacefully. "I'm Riley. I'm from Earth, like you. We're here to rescue everyone. Please don't hurt anyone else." "Rescue? You're rescuing the Vor? They're predators, killers. They'll destroy the Concordance eventually. I had to stop them. I had to show everyone what they really are." Riley's mind raced. This man was terrified, acting on fear and paranoia. She thought about her neighborhood, about learning to calm aggressive dogs, about talking down drunk people having bad nights, about all the small de-escalations she'd seen growing up. "I know the Vor look scary," Riley said, keeping her voice calm. "I've met Vor. I have a Vor teammate named Cress. He's helping me save people right now." "Both Vor people and Concordance people." "You don't understand," the man repeated. "I've studied them. They're apex predators. They evolved to hunt and kill. So did we. Riley said quietly. Humans are apex predators too. We evolved on a death world more dangerous than the Vor homeworld. We have predator instincts, hunting strategies, everything they have. Does that make us evil? The man hesitated. That's different, is it? Or are you just afraid of what you don't understand? Riley took a small step closer. I'm scared too. I'm scared all the time. But I learned something growing up on Earth. Fear doesn't have to control us. We can feel it and still choose kindness. We can be predators and still choose peace. They killed people, the man said, but his voice was weaker now. No, you killed people. 8 researchers were locked in engineering without oxygen because of what you did. Some of them were Vor, yes, but some were concordance scientists. People from gentle worlds who never hurt anyone. They're dying because you let fear make your choices. The man's hand moved toward the reactor controls. It's too late. I can't take it back. It's not too late, Riley said firmly. Those 8 people are alive. We got them out. Everyone on this station can still be saved, but only if you step away from those controls right now. I'll go to prison. My career is over. Everything I worked for is gone. Yes, Riley said honestly. You'll face consequences, but you'll face them alive. And so will everyone else on this station. That's better than the alternative. The man's shoulders slumped. His hand fell away from the controls. I was so scared. When they assigned Vor to this station, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing them as monsters. I convinced myself I was protecting people. Fear can do that, Riley said gently. It can make us see monsters where there are just people. But we're better than our fear. We have to be. She moved closer slowly, carefully, and guided the man away from the reactor controls. Come on, let's get you back to the others. Everyone needs medical attention, including you. As they made their way back through the corridors, Riley radioed the team. Reactor is secure. Saboteur is in custody. How's the evacuation going? We got everyone out of Section 7 just in time, Renth reported, his voice shaky with relief. That section is gone now. Completely vented to space. But everyone is safe. All patients secured on your ship, Pip added. Leaf is with them. I am ready to undock whenever you give the order. Dola here. The Meridian's voice was proud despite her obvious exhaustion. Station life support is at 70% and stable. I have locked out all sabotage access points. The remaining researchers can stay here safely until official rescue arrives. Riley felt tears forming in her eyes. They'd done it. Against all odds, with no training and nothing but determination, they'd actually done it. Good work, everyone. Amazing work. Let's finish this and go home. They gathered the remaining conscious researchers in the station's common area, now warming up as life support stabilized. Foreign concordance scientists sat together, exhausted and traumatized but alive. The saboteur sat quietly under Cress's watch, no longer fighting. How did you know we were here? One of the concordance researchers asked Riley. Official rescue team said it would be weeks before they could organize a mission. We're students from the academy, Riley explained. When we heard people needed help and everyone was too afraid to act, we decided to come anyway. Students? A Vor engineer looked at her team in disbelief. You risked your lives without training or authority? Someone had to, Renth said simply. Fear was paralyzing everyone else. We chose to act despite our fear. One of the older researchers, a branched one named Cedar, studied Riley carefully. You are human. From Earth. You face this kind of danger regularly, do you not? Not exactly like this, Riley admitted. But yeah, I grew up learning that scary things happen and you deal with them. You don't let fear stop you from doing what needs to be done. Cedar's branches rustled thoughtfully. I think I finally understand why humans were invited to the Concordance. Not because you are fearless, but because you know fear intimately and refuse to let it rule you. You have taught us all something today. Riley blushed. We just did what anyone should do. Help people who need help. That, Cedar said gently, is precisely what makes it remarkable. The official rescue teams arrived 6 hours later, shocked to find the situation stabilized and all survivors accounted for. There were many questions, some angry words about unauthorized use of academy resources, and concerns about the students' safety. But there was also gratitude from the survivors and grudging respect from the rescue coordinators. On the journey back to the academy, Riley's team was quiet. They were exhausted, emotionally drained, and processing everything that had happened. Pip sat next to Riley in the cockpit, watching the stars stream past. "I was so scared," Pip said softly. "When you went after the saboteur alone, I thought you would die. I thought we all would die." "I was scared too," Riley admitted. "I'm still scared thinking about how close we came to failing. But you did not freeze. None of us did. You taught us that. I didn't teach you anything. You all had courage inside you already. You just needed a reason to use it." When they docked at the academy, Headmaster Trell was waiting with what looked like half the faculty. Riley expected to be expelled. Instead, as she and her team exited their ship, the assembled crowd began to applaud. Headmaster Trell approached them, his branches swaying with emotion. "What you did was reckless, dangerous, and completely against Academy protocol. It was also the bravest thing I have witnessed in 600 years. You saved 32 lives that would have been lost without your intervention. The Concordance owes you a debt of gratitude." "Are we in trouble?" David asked nervously. "Oh yes," Trell said. "Significant trouble. There will be hearings and disciplinary reviews, but there will also be commendations and recognition. Sometimes the rules must bend for the right reasons. You have shown us all what courage truly means." Over the following weeks, things slowly returned to normal at the academy. Riley's team became minor celebrities, though they all felt uncomfortable with the attention. The real change was subtler and more important. Professor Aldrin's survival skills class resumed, but with a new approach. He still played the Predator recordings, but now he also taught coping techniques: how to acknowledge fear without letting it control you, how to think clearly in danger, how to act despite being scared. Riley became his assistant, sharing stories from Earth about ordinary courage. About firefighters and rescue workers, yes, but also about regular people who did small, brave things every day. Her classmates still found Earth sounds unsettling, but they were learning to hear them differently. Not as pure threats, but as the background noise of life in a complicated world. Pip became more confident, speaking up in classes and making new friends. Renth started a student organization dedicated to practical courage rather than theoretical warrior ideals. Dola took on more challenging technical projects, no longer afraid to try difficult things. One evening, Riley was in her dorm room working on homework when Pip knocked on her door.
Can I come in?
"Of course." Pip entered carrying a small datapad. "I wanted to show you something. I have been working on a project, a sound compilation." She played the file. It was a mix of sounds from different worlds. The gentle rain of Pip's garden planet, the wind through trees on Renth's world, the underwater acoustics of Dola's ocean home, and underneath it all, faint but recognizable, the sounds of Riley's Detroit neighborhood. "I wanted to capture what home sounds like for all of us," Pip explained. "At first, your sounds seemed wrong, out of place. But the more I listened, the more I heard what you hear. Life happening. People living their daily existence. It is not pretty or peaceful, but it is real." Riley felt tears forming. "It's beautiful, Pip, thank you." "No, thank you. You taught me that different does not mean wrong. That scary does not mean bad. That we can learn to understand things that frighten us." Pip smiled, her ears perking up. "Also, I no longer faint when Professor Aldrin plays Predator sounds. I still feel afraid, but I continue listening. It is progress." After Pip left, Riley stood at her window looking out at the Academy station and the stars beyond. She thought about her neighborhood back on Earth, about Mrs. Patterson and her barking dog, about the kids playing basketball, about the loud, chaotic, beautiful mess of life on a death world. She'd spent so long trying to be normal, to fit in, to not stand out. But maybe being from Earth meant something more than just surviving in a dangerous place. Maybe it meant understanding that fear and love could exist together, that chaos and home were not opposites, that you could be scared and keep going anyway. She pulled out her personal communicator and sent a message home to Detroit, to her parents, her friends, her neighborhood. She told them about the rescue mission, about her team, about learning that the ordinary courage of Earth wasn't ordinary at all to the rest of the galaxy. Her mother's response came back quickly. "Proud of you, baby. But also, are you eating enough? And please be more careful. Love you," Riley laughed. Even across light years, her mom was still her mom, worrying about normal things in the middle of extraordinary circumstances. It was perfect. The next morning in Professor Aldrin's class, he had a special announcement. "Today we begin a new unit. Instead of just recognizing threats, we will learn to live alongside them. We will study how humans and other species coexist with danger on their homeworlds." Riley has agreed to share more about Earth, and we have invited other students to share their experiences as well. As the lesson began, Riley looked around at her classmates. They still got nervous during some parts. They still showed their natural fear responses. But they also listened, learned, and asked questions. They were choosing understanding over panic. Ranth raised his hand. Riley, I have been wondering something. When you played that recording of your neighborhood and you yawned, you said it made you sleepy. Do you really find those sounds comforting? Riley thought about it. Yeah, I do. Because they mean I'm home. They mean life is happening. People are okay. The world is still turning. It's not about the sounds being gentle. It's about them being familiar. They mean safety because they mean normal. I think I understand now, Ranth said. Courage is not about having no fear. It is about finding safety even when danger exists. It is about making a home in places that seem impossible. Exactly, Riley said. That's what Earth taught humanity. And I guess in a weird way, that's what we can teach the galaxy, how to be scared and okay at the same time. Professor Aldrin smiled, his feathers rustling with satisfaction. That may be the most important lesson any of us ever learn. That fear and peace can coexist. That predators can choose kindness. That courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. He activated the audio system one more time. The sounds of Riley's Detroit neighborhood filled the classroom. Dogs barking, cars passing, people shouting greetings, chainsaws buzzing. The constant overlapping noise of urban life. And this time, while many students still showed signs of stress, none of them ran, none of them fainted. They sat and listened, trying to hear what Riley heard, trying to understand that behind the chaos was simply life happening, ordinary and extraordinary all at once. Riley closed her eyes and let the sounds of home wash over her. She was thousands of light years from Detroit, surrounded by aliens who came from worlds she'd never visit, studying at a school that shouldn't have accepted a human at all. But somehow, impossibly, she'd found a new kind of home here too, a place where being from a death world wasn't a curse, where fear was understood and respected, but not allowed to rule, where a neighborhood girl from Detroit could teach the galaxy that courage was just choosing to keep going. One loud, chaotic, beautiful day at a time. The sounds played on and Riley smiled. Just another Saturday morning, whether you were in Detroit or on a space station or anywhere else in the galaxy, and that was enough.